The weather also in Lambeau on Sunday. Our friends at Fox Bet, they have Green Bay as 4-point favorites in this one. Nick, what do you think it would mean for A-Rod's legacy if the Packers get upset in this game?
No bueno. Very bad. Listen, Aaron Rodgers, no one doubts how talented he is. Nobody. I believe he is the most talented, and this is a lot of people have at this point said it, the most talented thrower of the football ever. Maybe one day Patrick Mahomes can overtake him, but as of right now, it's Rodgers and Marino, to me, are on the top of that mountain. And this might be not his last chance to win a Super Bowl, but his last best chance to win a Super Bowl.
What's the difference?
Well, I think they will be relevant and in it the next few seasons. But he's 36 years old. They're 13-3 with a bye. New England with Brady got 13 byes. The Packers with Rodgers, this is their third. So it's not like you can just automatically say, well, they'll be right back in this position next year. They haven't won a playoff game since the divisional round of 2016. Last playoff game they were in, they got annihilated by the Falcons, missed the playoffs in 2017 because Rodgers was hurt, missed the playoffs last year for whatever reason they did. The team was just not very good. And so right now you have a team that, metrics-wise, is not a 13-3 team. They're more like an 11-5, 10-6 team. And Rodgers, the last half of the year, has not been great. He's averaging around 200 yards passing the last half of the season. But they ended up with the 2 seed. They ended up having the playoffs, I think, fall great for them, where they don't have to deal with a team just as good, if not better than them, in the New Orleans Saints. Instead, they get a Seattle team that's been getting by on, close games and good fumble luck and things like that throughout the season. And if you don't win this home playoff game to give yourself a chance to avenge the annihilation you suffered during the regular season in the hands of San Francisco, you do wonder, the most talented quarterback I've ever seen, is he going to finish his career with 1 trip to the Super Bowl? And by the way, 0 trips to the Super Bowl since Greg Jennings left, it should be noted. And so I don't think winning this football game cements his legacy. Legacies are not made in the divisional round. But for Rodgers, it could be weakened substantially if they don't make it at least to the conference championship game and probably back to his 2nd Super Bowl.
I agree 100% with everything that you said. When I look at Aaron Rodgers and his legacy, a lot of people are going to look at his individual stats and say, wow, he's put up uber numbers, and he's up there with the conversation of arguably he is the most talented quarterback that we've seen, arguably one of the best to ever play it in a lot of opinions, mine being one of those. But when you look at wins in the postseason, forget just the postseason, at home in the postseason, the inability to get wins in Lambeau with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, it's just not been a good look for him personally. I get it, the team, but he's going to bury and carry all that load when it comes to wins and losses in this time of the season. When you look at quarterback play and you look at where we rank Aaron Rodgers and how highly we see him and talk about him with the heir apparents of Peyton Mannings and Montanas and Tom Brady's as GOAT status, he has to win games like this. And you talk about it being a divisional round, it doesn't matter what round it is. He needs to get to another Super Bowl without Mike McCarthy because, again, one of the reasons why Mike McCarthy is no longer there is because of the relationship that they had and the lack of production that they were able to gain with one another. He has to be able to win without him, and we'll see what it looks like. But they got a great pick or a game against the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's been getting by, like, as you mentioned,
very close games.
On close games.
When you talk about Aaron Rodgers and his legacy, it comes down to rings. I mean, because there's an upper echelon of quarterbacks, and all of those guys have at least 2 rings. We talked about it with Drew Brees the other day, with him not having that 2nd ring. You start to wonder, well, you were so good, why don't you have at least 2 rings? Same thing for Aaron Rodgers. You're one of the best quarterbacks that have ever played the game. Where are the rings at? And so many times in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers was the reason why they won, and Mike McCarthy was always the reason why they lost. And so he has to be able to prove that I can win divisional games, and I can win potentially another Super Bowl to be discussed in that when you're getting that upper room. At least get there.
And that's my thing. He has to get there. The rings, that I don't think it all comes down and boils down to just the rings, but get to the Super Bowl, when you've lost in conference championship games the way that they have lost, you got to get back.
Well, when we compare Brady and Joe Montana, the first question is who has the most rings, right? Kobe, Michael Jordan. Who has the most rings? When you're talking about when this is small differences between the greatest of the great, the question comes down to the rings. If Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback that you've seen, Nick, then you have to ask the question, why hasn't he won more? And again, Mike McCarthy was to blame previously. Now, we're not going to blame Matt LaFleur. We're going to start pointing at Aaron Rodgers. Maybe doing it your way isn't the right way for your team to win.
There's no reason why he shouldn't win this game this weekend. They have a bye. He's
I totally
healthy.
agree with you.
They are at home. I mean, this
and
is
Seattle's not a great team.
Right, and they're beat up.
They're not a great team. They're banged up. And as great as Russell Wilson is, and I think I was one of the few people who picked Seattle to win that division going into the year. They obviously didn't, but they had 11 wins, which I thought would have been enough to win the division. Seattle is a flawed football team when healthy. We've talked about their game plan issues. We've talked about their inability to trust Russell Wilson to just be brilliant. And just like they win close games, they're not blowing a lot of people out. You know what I mean? And so this is a game that Green Bay absolutely should win. If it was Breeze and the Saints coming in there, you feel a little differently. They would have 2 13-3 teams. You could argue the Saints had the better season. They overcame a 5-week absence of Drew Brees. There is no argument that the Seattle Seahawks are better than the Green Bay Packers. There is a question, though, right now, and the Packers are my preseason pick to go to the Super Bowl, and Rodgers is my preseason pick to win MVP. But there is a question right now, who's the better quarterback on the field between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers? And I was looking into this morning. If they lose this game, we are all going to have to acknowledge we're in a different phase of Rodgers' career because the numbers say we've been there the last 5 years. Put them side by side if we can. There was the 09 to 14. It was the greatest statistical stretch of quarterbacking anyone's ever had. Those are average seasons. 36 touchdowns, 8 picks, a 109 rating on average, including he had a 122 rating one year. His the 15 one year is unbelievable. Since then, those are very good quarterback numbers. But 31 touchdowns to 6 picks, that's a great ratio, but the completion percentage is subpar, and the passer rating is good but not great. That's over the last 5 seasons. That's not a small sample size. One of those years, I understand he was hurt with where the Anthony Barr fell on him a couple years ago. But if they don't win this game, you say, okay, what did the Packers do in Rodgers' career when they did get the bye? 1 year, they lose as a 15-1 overwhelming favorite to the New York Giants. The other year with the bye, they have a 2-score lead against Seattle, against Russell Wilson, on the road to go to the Super Bowl, to give us Rodgers, Brady in the Super Bowl, and they melt down from there. And that was the last game Rodgers played in that first column, in that 6-year window. Since that playoff loss, he has been a great quarterback, but not the greatest quarterback. He's got to find a way to channel some of that over this, not just this weekend, but the couple weekends that follow.
And I think that's the key. He has to be what we have seen him be in the past. And I get it. New head coach, new offensive coordinator, new play calling scheme and all of that.
Only one reliable weapon.
But in this game, in this moment of the season, in the playoffs, you got to be special. You got to be that star. You got to be the GOAT that everybody believes that you are and capable of being.
I say it a little differently. I think that you got to get the run game going. I think that Aaron Rodgers is great, and we all know what he can do. But I think when you have that run game with Aaron Jones, who's had 5 games over 100 yards, 1 game with 93 yards, pretty close to 100, that makes Aaron